Good morning, I'm Taylor Wilson, and today is Monday, St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2025. This is the Excerpt. Today, how judges are calling out the Trump administration, plus some who are married or engaged to U.S. citizens are being detained by ICE, and it's almost time to return home later than expected for a pair of astronauts. Judges around the country have recently been calling out the Trump administration for various legal arguments. I caught up with USA Today Supreme Court correspondent Maureen Grappi for more. Hello, Maureen.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Thanks for hopping on today. So you wrote about the condemnations from 3 federal judges in courtrooms around the country this week. Let's start with U.S. District Judge William Alsup, who handed down that major ruling on federal worker firings. What happened here, Maureen, and what did we hear from Judge Alsup himself?
Yeah, so this case is about the federal workers who were fired because they had not been on the job that long, either had been recently hired or had been recently promoted. And they were all given notices about the same time, but individual agencies are supposed to be able to make those decisions, not one directive coming from one office within the White House. And so the judge had been trying to get at that point and felt like the administration was trying to obfuscate the fact that they had not done this properly. And what he specifically said is, I've been practicing or serving in this court for over 50 years, and I know how we get at the truth, and you're not helping me get at the truth. You're giving me press releases, sham documents. And then he also attacked the fact that the dismissal notices that these individual workers got said they were being dismissed because of poor performance. He specifically called that a lie. He said it's a sad day when our government would fire some good employee and say it was based on performance when they know good and well that's a lie.
All right. There was also U.S. District Judge Ana Reyes, who oversaw a hearing on Trump's transgender troop ban in the military, Maureen. What happened here and what stood out to you?
So what she was really grilling the Justice Department for hours about the basis for the decision, the Pentagon's decision that it's not a good idea for transgender people to serve in the military. And that's a reversal from what had been happening. So one of the things she took them to task for is how they used a 2021 military report. She accused them of cherry picking data in that study to make their point, when she said not only was that data misrepresented, but the overall study made the opposite conclusion of what they were trying to use the study for to make their point.
And earlier this week, U.S. District Judge Amir Ali ruled that the Constitution does not allow Trump to sit on funds Congress directed to be spent on humanitarian assistance and other foreign aid. This was a big issue here early in the administration. What else did we hear from Judge Ali, and what might be the importance here, Maureen?
So the thing I focused on was how he was looking at their explanation for this blanket freeze. The administration said, well, they needed to freeze all the spending because they wanted to do a review of these programs to see whether the money was being spent well and spent in line with Trump's policies. But he said there was no rational connection between that goal of reviewing these programs and the fact that all the spending had to be immediately frozen. His specific quote was, defendants have yet to offer any explanation, let alone one supported by the record, for why a blanket suspension setting off a shockwave and upending reliance interests for thousands of businesses and organizations around the country was a rational precursor to reviewing programs. So pretty tough language about the stated explanation for why they needed to go at the review this way.
And Maureen, just broadly, kind of writ large, why might it be significant that we're seeing these judges call out the Trump administration in this way in kind of quick succession in recent days?
So there are different ways that the administration actions can be challenged. The judges are looking at, does the administration have the legal means under the Constitution to do what they're doing? But part of that is, if they find that the explanations for how they're doing these things, if they're just false, that can be a problem for them. And we saw that during the first Trump administration when the Commerce Department wanted to add a question about citizenship on the 2020 census. And that went up to the court. And in a decision that was authored by Chief Justice John Roberts, he said that the agency had not been forthcoming about its real reason for wanting that question on the census. He said that under what's called the Administrative Procedure Act, there has to be an explanation for agency action. What the administration provided, he said, was more of a, quote, distraction, not a reasonable explanation.
All right, great analysis and breakdown for us as always. Maureen Grappi covers the Supreme Court for USA Today. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you.
The Trump administration deported nearly 300 alleged members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua under the Alien Enemies Act. That's despite a federal judge blocking the flights. Chief U.S. Judge James Boasberg's order Saturday came after Trump issued a proclamation which he had signed the day before, targeting gang members for immediate deportations under the 1798 law. The Alien Enemies Act allows the deportation without a hearing of anyone from the designated enemy country who is not a naturalized citizen. The law has only been invoked 3 times while the country was at war to hasten the removal of citizens of enemy countries. Hours before the proclamation's release, Judge Boasberg in Washington granted a temporary restraining order for the government not to deport 5 Venezuelan nationals cited in a lawsuit. But White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said in a statement yesterday that alleged gang members were arrested over the weekend at Trump's direction and had already been deported to El Salvador. Even those married or engaged to U.S. citizens are being detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement in recent weeks. I spoke with USA Today national immigration reporter Lauren Viagran to learn more. Lauren, thank you so much for making some time here.
Thanks, Taylor.
So you write in this story about Bradley Bartell and Sylvia Munoz. This is a couple. What can you tell us about them and their story?
So Bradley Bartell is a guy from Wisconsin. He works in the Dells region at a factory working maintenance. And a few years ago, he met his now wife, Sylvia Munoz, who is originally from Peru and who a few years back had come to the United States on a work-study visa while she was in college. During the COVID-19 pandemic, her visa was expiring and she had trouble getting home because borders were closed and there weren't very many flights out. In any case, she overstayed her visa, which is an administrative violation under U.S. Immigration Code. But she and Bradley met, fell in love, got married, and submitted their paperwork to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, as many, couples do when they're in that situation. And they took a belated honeymoon in January to Puerto Rico. But on their way back, Taylor, they were intercepted at the San Juan airport, and Sylvia was separated from Bradley by U.S. authorities and turned over to ICE.
And what's the latest there, Lauren? Have we heard anything from her, from this couple since?
So she has been in ICE detention now for roughly 4 weeks. And Taylor, she's not the only one in this situation. USA Today has learned from attorneys and others with knowledge of the women's cases that several other women were detained in a similar way in either the San Juan airport or an airport exiting the U.S. Virgin Islands. These are domestic flights, and the women are in different circumstances. Immigration can be complicated, as you know, but it does seem that all of the women were in some kind of legal immigration process.
Well, at issue in this particular story, Lauren, seems to be an overstay of a visa, as you mentioned. Can you just explain what happens when an immigrant does that, what impact it might have on future immigration processes, and just kind of what that means legally?
A visa overstay is not treated in the same way that crossing the border illegally is. And the reason for that, Taylor, I believe, is that when you apply for a visa, there's a vetting process that happens, and there are reasons why someone might overstay a visa. According to government reports, we know that visa overstays are often just about 1% to 2% of all folks who get a tourist or work-study visa in the United States might overstay. So it is a small number as a percentage of the whole. That being said, if you end up looking for an adjustment of status, if you get married to a U.S. citizen, it is possible that your visa overstay could be forgiven. It is also possible that you could be sent back to your country of origin with a bar to reentry of 3, 5, or 10 years. What is different in this case is that we're clearly seeing ICE choose to place people in a detained setting in essentially a correctional facility while they work out their immigration case.
And do they have any recourse, whether it's Bradley or similar situations, when a loved one goes into detention in this way?
ICE has broad authority to detain and deport immigrants in the country without legal status. What we are seeing now, though, is that even those with proof of some sort of legal immigration process, even if the status is not approved yet, are being detained. Taylor, we've confirmed even one case in which a woman has a valid green card. She lost the actual card and applied for a replacement, but her family member showed USA Today the USCIS form approving her green card earlier this year, and yet she's currently in ICE detention.
Wow. So, Lauren, what advice do advocates have for immigrants in this moment who have kind of any sort of legal limbo?
Look, I mean, without alarming the millions of people who are in an immigration process in the United States, an attorney with the ACLU did tell me that those who do not have full legal status should think twice before traveling and be well aware of how their immigration process could be, as the attorney put it, quote unquote, weaponized against them. It's pretty clear that it's important to carry all necessary paperwork or, proof of residency or citizenship. At this time, that's what we're hearing from attorneys.
It's clear that ICE is ramping up enforcement in this moment, Lauren. Just from their perspective, I mean, what kind of pressure are they facing to do so under this administration?
Well, Taylor, ICE did not respond to our repeated requests for comment by phone and email. Neither did the Department of Homeland Security, which is ICE's parent. But in covering the first 8 weeks of the administration, I can tell you that ICE is most definitely under incredible pressure to deliver higher and higher numbers of arrested and deported immigrants. We're also seeing that crackdown expanded to those who may also still be in a legal immigration process.
Lauren Viagran covers the border and immigration for USA Today. Another great and important piece from you, Lauren. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
At least 37 people are dead after dozens of tornadoes and severe storms pushed across the U.S. over the weekend, decimating homes and other structures in several states. Deaths were reported in Kansas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Arkansas, Texas, Alabama, and Missouri, where the storms killed a dozen, including 3 on Friday night, when an EF3 tornado with peak winds of 140 miles an hour ripped through the town of Bakersfield, according to the National Weather Service. A Kansas highway pileup involving over 70 vehicles also left several people dead, according to the State Highway Patrol. The SpaceX Crew 10 mission has made it to the International Space Station. With floating hugs and smiles all around, the 2 NASA astronauts who crewed the ill-fated Boeing Starliner greeted their replacements aboard the station yesterday. The arrival of the mission's crew signals a significant milestone for Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, who flew to the station in June on the doomed Starliner spacecraft. Now that Crew 10 has made it to orbit, the stage is set for Wilmore and Williams to finally return to Earth with the 2 astronauts of Crew 9. Though that highly anticipated voyage still won't happen for a few days. The field is now set for the college basketball tournaments. Selection Sunday brought the annual bracket reveal, and Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida will be the number 1 seeds in the men's tournament, while UCLA, South Carolina, Texas, and USC are the top seeds in the women's field. You can find the full brackets and submit your own picks with USA Today Sports. We have a link in today's show notes. And later today, do you think the media is focusing on President Donald Trump and the federal government too much? We asked readers this question as part of a new initiative from the USA Today opinion team that we're calling Forum. Each week hones in on a different issue that is hotly debated, but that Americans are starkly divided on. Tune in today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to hear our second bonus episode of Forum with the voices of listeners and readers just like you. We have a link to the written version of Forum in today's show notes. And thanks for listening to The Excerpt. You can get the podcast wherever you get your audio. And if you're on a smart speaker, just ask for The Excerpt. I'm Taylor Wilson, and I'll be back tomorrow with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.